You're listening to Audiology. Support this channel by becoming a member and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. Federalist No. 3 is a thought-provoking essay by John Jay, which forms part of the Federalist Papers. It is the third installment and was first published in the Independent Journal on November 3, 1787. The piece, like all others in the Federalist Papers, is authored under the pen name Publius. This specific essay is one in a series of 4 by Jay, where he explores why a united political front is crucial for protecting Americans from external threats. It builds on the concepts introduced in Federalist No. 2 and sets the groundwork for Federalist Nos. 4 and 5. In Federalist No. 3, Jay tackles the significant question: is a united federal government or individual state governments better at managing foreign affairs and preventing wars? Jay's stance is unequivocal. He argues that a federal government has the advantage. He suggests that with a broader selection of individuals, a federal system is more likely to choose competent statesmen. Moreover, it can enforce treaties more consistently than states acting independently. Jay highlights that individual states, when directly involved in conflicts, might respond impulsively, whereas a federal government can approach situations with a more balanced and thoughtful perspective. Jay starts off with the idea that when it comes to governing themselves, people know best. He points out that the decision to unite the states is a prime example of such wise decision-making. He emphasizes that keeping the public safe is a government's top duty and believes that being united is key to ensuring that safety. Jay mentions that wars often stem from broken treaties or acts of aggression, and argues that single states acting alone are more likely to fall into these pitfalls than a strong, centralized national government. This is particularly troubling given the United States' interactions with several powerful, war-capable nations. He offers 4 key reasons why a national government is better at handling foreign relations. First off, Jay believes that the leaders of a national government would be the cream of the crop, having risen to the top from a much larger pool of candidates than any one state could offer. Secondly, he suggests that a strong national government would keep the peace more effectively, mainly because it would apply treaties consistently, avoiding actions that might provoke other nations. Third, Jay argues that states, if left to their own devices in disputes, might act on emotion rather than reason, and a national layer of government could provide a stabilizing influence. Lastly, he notes that even if people in a state were to back a rash decision, a national government wouldn't be swayed by such public opinion. Moving on to issues at the United States borders, Jay observes that while state governments have triggered conflicts with American Indian nations, the national government has not. He raises concerns about potential conflicts at the borders with Britain and Spain. Jay wraps up his arguments by suggesting that in international disagreements, a unified America would be in a stronger position to negotiate. He refers to an event in 1685 when Genoa was forced to apologize to France, questioning if France would demand such an act from a powerful nation. Jay concludes that a strong, united nation stands a better chance of maintaining peace since it would more easily resolve causes of war. John Jay, the author behind Federalist No. 3, used the pseudonym Publius to publish this paper, just like the rest of the Federalist Papers. The goal was to explain the Constitution to the people of New York and convince them to support it. This particular essay first appeared in the Independent Journal on November 3, 1787. Then it was published in the Daily Advertiser the next day, and in the New York Packet the day after that. Federalist No. 3 picks up where Federalist No. 2 left off. It continues discussing how the historical unity among the states benefits the nation's security. Jay's argument is based on the idea that not approving the Constitution could lead to the states breaking apart. Interestingly, even those who were against the Constitution, known as anti-federalists, typically did support the idea of staying united. At the time he was writing these essays, Jay was the country's top diplomat and dealt first-hand with the diplomatic challenges facing the United States. In Federalist No. 3, the argument is made that in matters of dealing with other countries, a single, united federal government would do a better job than separate state governments. The belief here, shared by Jay, is that a unified nation would be a safer bet in avoiding war, while individual states might easily stir up trouble. At the time these ideas were being written down in the Federalist Papers, the entire concept of international law was pretty basic, mostly involving treaties and some high-minded ideas about natural rights. To delve into the specifics of war, Jay categorizes it into 2 types: just war, which is considered fair and justifiable, and unjust war. He spends a lot of time discussing what makes a war just like treaty violations or acts of aggression, and points out that a single state acting on its own is much more likely to accidentally or intentionally cause these kinds of issues than a whole nation acting as one. In Federalist No. 3, the argument is made that having one national government would be a huge advantage, especially when it comes to dealing with other countries. Here's why. Imagine we have the entire population of the 13 states to choose from. This means we're more likely to find really skilled politicians for diplomacy than if each state had to find their own from a much smaller pool of people. According to Jay, for the United States to avoid wars, it's crucial that we follow international laws and customs consistently. He thought this task should fall on a federal government to make sure it's done right. Why? Because if every state had its own way of interpreting treaties based on their local laws and interests, that's just asking for trouble with other countries. With one strong central government, there would be one clear, united foreign policy for all states. Now, the main goal Jay outlined for the government was safety, making it the top priority for a society that wants to remain free. He specifically pointed out the risks of dangers from foreign arms and influence. Throughout his writings in the Federalist Papers, Jay used the tactic of playing on American fears. In Federalist No. 3, he highlighted how powerful countries like Britain and Spain could easily dominate the states if they stayed divided. Given Jay's significant role in shaping American foreign policy, he had a deep insight into the kinds of threats the United States faced from abroad. In Federalist No. 3, Jay made a compelling argument for keeping the powers of diplomacy in the hands of a national government instead of distributing them among individual states. He believed that a national government representing a variety of states would avoid making hurried decisions in conflicts because it would not be directly involved in the dispute. According to Jay, this arrangement would allow the national government to make more objective decisions and had a better chance at resolving conflicts due to its broader perspective. Jay highlighted the dangers posed by states sharing borders with the British and Spanish empires and the indigenous nations. He expressed concern that any violent incident at the border could ignite a war and felt that the judgment of a national government was essential in preventing and managing such incidents. This viewpoint reveals an overall skepticism towards state governments that is evident throughout the Federalist Papers. State governments had demonstrated a tendency to engage in actions that could incite conflict with foreign nations and indigenous people, like restricting the rights of British subjects or encroaching on indigenous territories. The Constitution, Jay argued, would give the federal government the authority to oversee these types of interactions, aiding in the prevention of diplomatic conflicts between states and other nations. Another significant theme introduced in Federalist No. 3 and recurring in subsequent papers was Jay's belief in the capability of people to make sensible decisions about their government most of the time. Nevertheless, he acknowledged that there are instances when public opinion might lead to misguided decisions, particularly on complex issues like foreign policy. In his opinion, these matters were more effectively managed by professional diplomats who could adopt a broader, more informed perspective. This skepticism also extended to state governments, which Jay believed could be influenced by the passions of their populations, leading to impulsive decisions. In contrast, a federal government would take into consideration the interests of all states, resulting in more rational and less emotionally charged policies. Jay expanded on his ideas in papers No. 4 and No. 5, arguing that a unified nation could attract superior statesmen, a point James Madison would later revisit in his 10th paper. When Jay became the Chief Justice of the United States 2 years later, he strongly held the belief that the federal judiciary should play a key role in applying international law consistently. The influence of local and state matters on foreign policy has consistently been a topic of debate in the United States. For example, the way state governments interact with Mexican citizens has led to ongoing diplomatic tensions with Mexico, especially regarding illegal immigration to the US, an issue that persists into the 21st century. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more content.